It's not bad, especially since he didn't have to do much. But what else? I mean, money's just money, right? No, no, no. Money isn't enough when you're going after a Christian. Christians can raise money. You have to go for his legitimacy, you have to go for his belief, you have to go for his spirit, you have to go for his faith. And so, Lori Andrea Chuck, the Human Rights Commissioner, is she a judge? Is she an expert in matters of faith? Does she understand theology? No, no. Her expertise, she's a divorce lawyer, a radical feminist from Lethbridge, who got this appointment for loyal service to the Conservative Party. A divorce lawyer, no training in religion or freedom of speech or constitutional freedoms. Lori Andrea Chuck, Human Rights Commissioner, not only ruled that he had to pay $5,000 to his tormentor and more to someone else, I forget who, but he had to write a letter, a false letter of confession. He had to write a letter to Darren Lund, the busybody, renouncing his beliefs, apologizing for his statements. Now, we know that a jailhouse confession in a third world jail is something that the authorities try and keep secret. They like to show at the end of the day, look, look, they confessed to the crime. Look, it takes a special kind of bureaucrat to be so, is it brazen or is it stupid? To issue an order in public light of day saying, you will say you're sorry, you will sign a letter renouncing your faith. I don't care if you mean it, I don't care who knows it. I'm ordering you to grind your face in the sand. You will say you're sorry. Now, you know, our criminal code and our Charter of Rights, it only applies to mere murderers. You cannot order a murderer to apologize. Paul Bernardo, Clifford Olson cannot be ordered to apologize. It would be called cruel and unusual treatment. It's not allowed. And you know what? Why would you want to order them to apologize? Why would you want them to say something fake or false? What value is that? If a murderer doesn't feel contrition, why would you make them say it with their mouth? Who believes that? What value is that? That's a very Orwellian punishment, to say something that you don't mean. Holding a, say you see three fingers, say you see three fingers, say you see three fingers. If you order me to say it, what value is that? That's why we don't order mere murderers to issue false apologies or false confessions, yet a pastor was ordered to do so, to renounce his faith. Oh, but that wasn't the last of it, was it, Jerry? He was given a lifetime ban on saying anything disparaging about gay rights in public, including in sermons, or in private, even mentioning his email. The order actually says he may not, for the rest of his life, by the way, say anything in public or in private disparaging of gay marriage. Now look at that word disparaging. If you look it up in the dictionary, it means critical, it means negative. Not discriminatory or illegal, words that have some legal meaning, but anything merely politically opposed. He may not express a viewpoint, even a natural, normal, calm, not hateful viewpoint. He may not even say, I'm against it. For the rest of his life, this order is the law of Alberta. But there is one last thing that Reverend Stephen Boisson was ordered to do. And by the way, I'm talking about Alberta, Canada. I'm not talking about communist China. I'm not talking about Muslim parts of Nigeria. I'm not talking about Iran. I'm not talking about countries where Christians are tortured and martyred. I'm talking about a province whose motto is Fortis et Liber, strong and free. I'm talking about a province that claims to be the freest province in Canada, a country that's one of the freest countries in the world. I am not talking about some jail cell in a third world country. What was the final order that Reverend Stephen Boisson was ordered to do, bound to do by the Alberta Human Rights Commission, by this divorce lawyer from Lethbridge, by the government of Alberta? What was the final order? He was ordered to write another op-ed in the Red Deer Advocate. He was ordered to renounce his faith in public for the whole city to see. He was ordered to stand up and shout it out to all his friends and neighbors, I renounce my faith, I renounce my views, everything I said I don't mean. Can you believe that order? It's a show trial. It's a show trial. Now, to their credit, the Red Deer Advocate, when they heard of this, said, over our dead bodies will we use our press for your propaganda. And they refused right at the outset. But what kind of a government? What kind of morality would order a man to publicly renounce his faith? And I tell you that this is being done by an organization with the fraudulent name Alberta Human Rights Commission. Do you think that this has anything to do with the legacy of Martin Luther King? Who is your human rights hero? Is it Mahatma Gandhi? Does this sound like a Gandhian approach? Or maybe you like the famous five, the suffragettes who fought for the equality of men and women. Does this sound like something that meets the label Human Rights Commission? It's a damnable lie. It's a fraud. It's right out of Orwell, where the Ministry of War was called the Ministry of Peace, and the Ministry of Propaganda was called the Ministry of Truth. This Human Rights Commission doesn't care about human rights. The only thing that has to do with human rights is their name, because they hope you'll look no further than their name to the substance of what they actually do. This is the law of Alberta. And don't let anyone tell you it's some independent agency, because for the first time in the history of the commission that I'm aware of, at least, Jerry, the government of Alberta sent in a lawyer, the Attorney General representing Cabinet sent in a lawyer to argue for his conviction. And that lawyer, and you were there, so correct my wording if I'm wrong, actually argued that the right not to be offended trumped our constitutional rights to freedom of speech and freedom of religion. This made-up right, and I defy you to find it in any constitutional document going back to the Magna Carta, this made-up right not to be offended was created and isn't just on par with freedom of speech, but is superior to it. Trump is the word in the order. What is going on here? I'll tell you what's going on here. An out-of-control bureaucracy infused by radical activists acting beneath the radar of public scrutiny. They've been getting away with it for decades, and nobody noticed. They started slowly and tentatively. Like I said, they went after some ugly people. John Ross Taylor is not a poster child for freedom of speech. It's hard to stick up for guys like that. And these human rights commissions, the further they went, the more radical they went, the more tyrannical they went, the more authoritarian they went, built up some confidence. And the people who went to work for them became more and more radical themselves, and that became a vicious cycle. A few years ago, they went after the Bishop of Calgary, Fred Henry, when he wrote a letter to his diocese critical of gay marriage. And in a mistake I'm sure he realizes was a grave mistake, Bishop Fred Henry blinked, and he agreed to clarify his remarks. Oh, that must have emboldened the Human Rights Commission. They took on the Bishop of Calgary on gay rights, and he blinked. Well, they can take on anyone, can't they? We have to roll back these human rights commissions. I wouldn't even accept a rollback. I don't think you prune back a malicious weed. I think you pull it out by the roots. But at the very least, had I given this speech 48 hours ago, I would have said there's a bright light on the horizon. Alberta's minister in charge of the Human Rights Commission, his name is Lindsay Blackett. He's a black man himself, and so he has a politically correct Teflon when he talks about these subjects. 48 hours ago, I would have said there's hope on the horizon. Lindsay Blackett, the man in charge of our Human Rights Commission, has called it a kangaroo court. He used those very words. He has said there's no such thing as the right not to be offended. He poked fun at himself and the fact that he couldn't get a prom date. Said that was offensive. Should he sue the girl he asked out? Very funny. Shows a sense of normalcy. Shows that he's not part of the censorship. If you have a grievance, run to the government mindset. He presented his ideas to caucus. You would think it would be a slam dunk. For crying out loud, it's made for Hollywood. A young black man goes to the legislature, becomes a cabinet minister, fights for human rights, and expands freedom of speech. It's a Hollywood ending, but not quite. Premier Ed Stelmach kiboshed that, and yesterday the law came down. And in fact, this bad-behaving Human Rights Commission, the same one that ground me down for 900 days, that's gone after Pastor Boisson for 7 years, was not reined in the slightest. In fact, in this recession with a $5 billion deficit, when unemployment is up, they got a $1.7 million raise for a job well done.